if I don't do it now, I will forget. So Ashley, I'm sorry, I'm giving you more information to have to cut out or more content, but we have 1 minute. I'm sad when there's not more people.
I know. We've got to get I think it's all good information. I think we're just failing on the marketing side.
I think so too. Unfortunately, and I don't, our post never went live for this.
Yeah.
It's okay. We do what we can. All right, I'm gonna let everyone in. Hello, everyone. I think Alan is coming in to join us. Well, I hope you're all here for the Armchair Botanist Forum. And I'm looking at everyone's names and everyone is familiar to me. So I'm excited to see all of you. You may or not have been muted when you first came in. We're a small enough group. So if you would like to unmute yourself at any point to ask a question, please go ahead and do so. And hopefully you're all here expecting to hear about the Andes to Amazon Biodiversity Program today. And some of you I know have been around with the Fort Worth Botanic Garden and previously the Botanical Research Institute of Texas long enough that you may have heard about this program when it was still active. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. And this is just a reminder to everyone that the Armchair Botanist Program is a collaboration between us. Y'all know me, Tiana Raymond, Director of the Herbarium, and I am accompanied by Kimberly Sasson, who is our research assistant in the herbarium and with our Ferns of Columbia project. Kimberly is my co-host today, and y'all will notice that there's a noticeable absence today. Ashley Bordelon, the regular host, is getting married. So felt the need to take off today. So I know we all wish her well. She'll be getting married this weekend and then back in a week or so. So if you are emailing her directly to her email address, just know she is put an out of office message on. And if you do need a response, go ahead and email herbarium@brit.org. That's an email account that she and I both have a look at. So if you've got any questions, definitely do that. And just to make sure, because y'all are a quiet bunch this morning, are y'all able to hear me? Is everyone doing well? I'm going to take that for agreement because I still see you on there. And Kimberly, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. And just to let y'all know, thank you, Anita Joyce. So I just want to let y'all know that the reason for timing this particular talk to today is because it is the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month. And this is something celebrated around the U.S. To honor the contributions that Hispanic Americans make to our communities. And just to let you know, we've got a bunch of stuff going on at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. Thank you, Jean. A bunch of stuff going on here at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden, and it kicks off tomorrow, and it is a free day for anyone in the community. So if you are interested or know somebody who is in town that would like to see the Botanic Garden, it is going to be free to the public tomorrow. So that gets you into our conservatory, into our Japanese garden. There's a bunch of other events that should be really great, and I have to encourage you to come and see all the hard work of our horticulturists. The marigolds are looking spectacular. So do come and visit us if you can in person. And I believe there may be some virtual events that are listed on that website. So y'all I don't know where your Spanish stands, but you're lucky. I almost thought about offering this in Spanish. Now, if we'd been translating or transcribing Spanish labels, then I definitely would have done that. But bienvenidos a todos ustedes to our lecture about the Andes Amazon. Just going to start off because some of you may have questions, and knowing that Ashley's going out of town. A reminder that we're here in the Phyllocology Herbarium. This is where Kimberly and I are presenting from today, a collection of many different sorts of organisms. And this is the process that y'all are very, very familiar with. The collection in the field, the actual preservation of the plant, then it's digitization, which is where our armchair botanists come in. And so what y'all will hear about today with the Andes Amazon project is a little bit of all of this, but probably especially about the collection in the field and the aims of the project. You'll notice, maybe those of you that have seen this slide month after month, that I've just added another section in there to indicate that georeferencing. And Ashley created this slide for all of us. Oh, David, I'm glad to see you. Ashley created this slide for all of us to talk about, because this is the current and ongoing projects for the Armchair Botanist program. So on site, Ashley wanted to draw attention to there's work to be done with our Andes to Amazon Biodiversity Program project, which is what I'll present today. And then there's also work to be done in digitizing our non-vascular collections. So our bryophytes, our lichens, our fungi. In particular, for a lot of those, it's starting with the imaging process. And then virtual, we're continuing to do torch crowdsourcing. We're also starting a new project. So those of you that I don't know if we talked about this last month, but we're also embarking on another project to digitize all our Asian holdings. And so we're starting to work with that project as well. And then of course, torch georeferencing, which is a big one that we're just now starting to kick off. If you have not already sent Ashley an email or sent our herbarium@brit.org or at fwbg.org email address an email expressing interest, then please go ahead and do so. Kimberly, would you type the herbarium into the chat just so everyone has it as a quick link? If you're interested, we'll send you the next steps. Basically, what the georeferencing is going to entail, and I think we've talked about this before, is many of our institutions on this National Science Foundation funded torch grant are going to be pooling all our transcribed collection localities into one bucket for everybody to transcribe: employees, students, volunteers, and to get all the curators to be on board with this process of opening up their collection for people to georeference, to apply geocoordinates to a textual locality string. We had to all agree on a training protocol, and we had to agree on some form of kind of testing to assure quality, that everyone's doing things, following the protocols, and that they're understanding the process. So if you're interested in georeferencing with us, send an email to herbarium@brit.org, and then we'll get you started with some self-study. Just know that there will be a test. You'll be given a set of specimens to georeference. And then once you pass that test, we'll move into georeferencing whatever geographic county probably that you're interested in. So questions, anybody? And feel free to unmute yourselves. Or comments. Linda Jo, I muted you a second ago because I was hearing some background noise. Did you have any questions you wanted to ask or comments?
I am confused by whenever we watch the little videos they have.
Yep.
They are using a spreadsheet there. And do we have access to that?
Yeah, so let me tell you about the way it works. And this is kind of jumping into the weeds for those of you that haven't gone through this process yet. The actual activity of georeferencing will be done in an interface that looks like what's on the top right hand of the screen right now. You see it says Geolocate Collaborative Georeferencing Web Client. Sometimes we call that Koji. So Koji, that's how you'll do it, Linda Jo. But because right now, and basically what will happen is you'll log in, and then you'll get presented with this kind of interface, and it'll give you a location, just like it does highlighted in yellow on the screen right now, where it says 10 kilometers to the west of Mathis, AI, east of Lake Corpus Christi, San Patricio County. If you expand that, there's actually a link that takes you back to the image of the specimen in the record in the Torch portal. So that's how, once the test is passed and all that's done, this is how you'll actually do the georeferencing. Because we don't actually have the test ready yet, that test isn't going to be available till the end of September, beginning of October. Once that test is ready, then you'll be able to do it in this system. If you followed some of those emails she sent out, we put together, for whatever county you chose, we put together a small Excel list, and Ashley did all this work. We put together a small Excel list of about 10 locations from the county you chose, only to give you an idea, just to give you a practice set, just to see the kinds of locality descriptions that are in there, and just to let you use whatever resources you wanted to, Google Maps or whatever, to try to put down a coordinate. So it's just mostly kind of to play.
Okay, I have been through the little Excel sheet last night,
Yeah, perfect.
and I used Google Maps
Perfect.
and my personal knowledge of the site
Perfect.
to set a central location,
Mhm.
but then we do not do a accuracy circle then, though, do we?
Excellent. Very good. You do not need to do uncertainty, because there's just not an easy way for you to do that unless you're in a different kind of mapping system to be able to measure. So, yeah. So no need to do uncertainty. What I would tell you to do, because this is helpful practice, is there's another column in that Google sheet that says georeference remarks. I think that was the title.
Yeah.
So go ahead and put in whatever assumptions, or, you said you knew this locality because of personal knowledge. So go ahead and put any information that you think is relevant to somebody down the line trying to figure out, why you put that coordinate wherever you put it.
Okay.
It's
And two
very-
of my,
Yeah, go ahead.
excuse me. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to let you know that there are, we're now entering into georeferencing, and just like there are all those peculiarities in transcription, there are some people that will not consider a location georeferenced unless it has that uncertainty listing, and it also has some input, some text in the remarks field for how you got to that coordinate. Anyway, go ahead, Linda Jo. You were going to ask me about two more, I think.
Okay, two of mine for Milam County they say Milam County, but they were obviously not observed in Milam County. One was on Highway 290, which does not run through Milam County, and the other was up in Bell County near Temple.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and looked them up because they were easy.
Oh, well, great. That's great.
The herbariums, I mean, I don't know if it's on the specimen. I didn't actually check. I should have done that. Check to see if it was actually printed on the specimen that it was from Milam County, or if somebody assumed it,
That is a good
with a
point. You're
distress.
right.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, do look at that, Linda Jo, and send another email, because I know you sent us an email already, and I'm not sure Ashley got to it yesterday. So if you find it still to be a problem, let us know, because we can go and correct that record online.
Okay.
So
But the herbarium sample is another deal.
Correct. I mean, it could be either, it could have been a mistake in printing. It could have been a mistake in, maybe the county wasn't listed on the specimen and somebody had to figure out what county it was, and that whatever research they used was not accurate. Or it could have been just a transcription error. Somebody was transcribing a bunch from one county and somehow mistakenly keystroked the wrong county in. So yeah.
Okay.
So,
thanks.
Yeah, good questions. David, thank you. I'm glad to see your name on here. I sent the georeferencing form to Ashley, and you haven't watched the video yet. That's fine. Basically, what we're giving everybody now is a chance to kind of do some self-study until we have that test ready for everyone to take. So before the test is, when we have a more accurate idea of when the test will go live, we will have another meeting and record that meeting so that y'all can kind of ask some of your questions, because I don't want you to get stumped by the software being the problem and not just the protocol. So just stay posted with us. And I have to say, is it Beth? Beth has been working with us on Collin County. And the other option for while you're prepping right now is you can start accumulating a list of resources that you might use to georeference your county, whether it's county historical records, other maps you've found online. You can start doing that. and that would be great. That'll help you as you move forward. Lisa, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yeah, so are you saying that y'all are going to have your own test? And because after you see the video, they say create a test. And so are we not supposed to do that?
Let me clarify. Maybe there's some error in there. So the way it will work is we will have a test set of specimens set up for each of you. And when you tell us you're ready to take the test, we'll basically, I presume you'll get an email or we'll communicate with you in some way or form to say, hey, the test is live. And you'll just go and log in to the geolocate, and it will take you to a set of specimens for you to georeference. So you yourself don't have to make any sort of test.
So will there be the same specimens for everybody that they'll be tested over, or are you going to do it specific to our area?
No, that is going to be a little bit of a, that's going to be a bit different too. You are going to be given, I think we have a test set of 70 specimens. You are not going to be tested on 70 specimens, but I think we have a golden set of 70 specimens that are independently being georeferenced by Jason, Ashley, and Diego. And to kind of figure out what's the right coordinate that should be assigned to this specimen. And then that's what we'll be comparing yours to. And there's going to be some variance, right? But so.
Okay. And so I'm thinking that you want us to put in that scratch pad or whatever, like links or such and such to maps and things that we're going to use.
Yeah.
And can we make our own subfolders in that? Like this is maps to this, especially if you've got more than one county you say you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say, Lisa, just make sure that your references and the images you insert are for the county, the parent folder. So if you're in Bell County, just make sure your Bell County is there versus somewhere else. Yeah. And you can create some shortcuts back and forth. I don't see a problem. We intentionally gave every county its parent folder so that you could do that. Now, I will ask you all to just be very careful to reference where you're getting material, because this is a great resource that should live beyond each of us. And so we hope that we will, maybe at some point, we'll clean it up so it's at a stage where we can maybe post a public link to it from the Torch website. So that other people that are georeferencing don't have to recreate the wheel and all that.
I know that the area that I chose has got a lot of the U.S. Geological Survey maps and such. So those are going to be important. And I was thinking maybe put links on, biography of particular collectors and such, that kind of thing.
Yeah, perfect. And I think that in the video, if you watch the video from the last training, we kind of went over how you can locate specimens in the Torch portal from your county, because that's going to let you already kind of download an Excel spreadsheet or look at a table, and you'll be able to see who are the collectors and what is my range of years in which we were collecting. In fact, I think Ashley went ahead and even put links to all your county searches. I think she already did it for you. So have a look at the top of that Google Doc and see what's in there too. Yeah. It's exciting, y'all. This is going to be really great. And the kinds of questions and comments we're already getting from those of you that have started kind of doing some of this research and accumulating some of those references are really great. And it just reinforces that we're going to get better coordinates, better mapping because of y'all's skill set and expertise in a region. So thank you.
I think the research will take much longer than actually doing it.
Yeah. And that is the right, from what we know of other people that have been georeferencing specimens from not just Texas and Oklahoma, but around the world. There's a curve, right? It takes a long time to get started with their first few, but then it gets faster and faster, particularly if you have a better idea of the lay of the land and the historical, references that you're looking at. So, yeah, we hope so. That's why we're restricting it to, a single county at a time to make sure that expertise we're effective use of that expertise. All right, who's got a stumper? Anybody else got a question? All right. Well, it is just, there's about 9 of us on the call today. So I'm going to start. I think the next slide I have is well, just a reminder what we've got coming up next in October, and that the recording from the last Armchair Botanist Forum is not up yet, but it will be. And that one I think some of you might be interested in that live in the area, because it is a presentation by our interns this summer, our research interns that did a floristic inventory of the Rocky Creek Ranch Park, which is city-owned property just south of Benbrook Lake. So that should be a good one. So just stay posted. That will get posted. And then this recording today will get posted. Okay, so in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, I would like to present to you the Andes to Amazon Biodiversity Program. So this is a project that began before, so the main folks that started this project are John Janovic, Amanda Neal, and Matthias Tobler. I believe that is accurate. And it started in 2001. And that was while John Janovic and Amanda Neal were graduate students in New York, finishing their PhDs or working on their PhDs. And they both arrived to then the Botanical Research Institute of Texas in 2003. And they brought this project to Britt. And it lasted probably till around the time we were in this new building, and it kind of changed forms throughout its time here, and probably lasted through till about, I would say about 2012 or so. But the focus moved, the physical project sort of moved more to Peru and less to being here in Texas. But the goal of the project was to discover and document biodiversity from the high Andes to the Amazonian lowlands. So you're looking at various maps and shots of the terrain, and that map in the top right-hand corner, you'll see it again. And then these are some of the people that funded the project. And there's actually many more people on the AABP team that are not listed here, but this is a good start. So the supporters, you know, aside from folks here, the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation invested heavily in the project. The Beneficia Foundation, Stanley Smith Horticulture, Upton Foundation, Amazon Conservation Association, various herbaria. And if I'm not mistaken, there was also a National Science Foundation grant that supported the work of this program. Like I said before, the main folks that managed the project in Peru were John Janovic, Fernando Cornejo, I hadn't mentioned him before, he's a Peruvian botanist, Matthias Tobler, who is at the San Diego Zoo now, I believe. I haven't confirmed that. And then Amanda Neal, who is, so Amanda Neal and John Janovic were employees here at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden, or at the Botanical Research Institute of Texas. So here were some of the major activities: was the data collection, biodiversity data collection, environmental data collection, technology development and testing, data analysis and integration, dissemination, publication, and then of course, training and education. So they all seem like very general things, but what I really am excited to especially tell y'all about, because y'all are especially familiar with the Torch portal and how we manage those data now. I'm excited to show you this because this was an attempt to early on to try to integrate all the various data sources, similar to what we're starting to see in Torch and what we're starting to see in the whole idea of the extended specimen, of all the other kinds of data that tie back to a single specimen and a collection event. So you'll see some slides in Spanish. So a lot of these slides were put together by AABP collaborators. Oh, well, that would have been like circa 2008, something like that. So here's a map of the area in which we're working. So you don't have a larger map, but picture that you are in South America, on the South American continent. You're looking on the west side, which is, and right here, you're kind of looking at the southern part of Peru. In the east, you've got a white circle highlighting something called Los Amigos. And then you can follow the river up all the way up into the Andes. And then you're seeing another white circle or lips that says Waiquicha Cloud Forest. So there were two main spots, the Los Amigos spot and the Waiquicha, and the Pantiacoya, which is the other white circle, kind of arrived a little bit later. But the whole idea of the project was looking at how diversity also changed in this altitudinal gradient, and not just for plants. So when the project started, it was the Andes to Amazon Botany program, but it got changed to biodiversity program because it started including a lot of other organisms. just to give you an idea of some of the habitats, you're looking at the higher elevations, obviously, in the three on the closest to the bottom right, and then the top left, that's an overlook from the Los Amigos Biological Station. So that's where I'm going to start. So a little bit of history of why I'm able to actually present some of this is I started at BRIT in 2003, right when this project got there. And I did my master's work on a group of plants on this project. So I presented some of this information, but it's been a long time. So the Los Amigos Conservation Area is located in southeastern Peru in the Department of Madre de Dios. And you are looking at photographs of that general location. So in the top left, it is actually on a high terrace from the river, from the river. So you can actually see some of those are, there's a close-up in the bottom left. That is an example of one of the structures that exists on the site. So it's a biological station that researchers have to pay to go work from because there's food and there's lodging involved. But it has a huge system of trails that researchers can do different sorts of research in. So I know that many of you have probably gone to a biological station here in the US or other places. And I think that you probably recognize that that camaraderie, that excitement, where you're all studying different things, plants, howler monkeys, raptors, whatever. But you're all, eating together, suffering through the friajes, the cold fronts together, eating together, getting to know one another, and then keeping an eye out for each other. Hey, the organism I'm studying was eating your plant, and what is this plant? And being brought things back and asking questions. And it's just a really energizing place to be, where so many people are inquisitive and asking questions about the environment. It's a really inspirational place. So here is another map so that you can kind of see where it is. This might place you, if any of you are familiar with Peru, southeastern Peru, and some of the areas, you might recognize some of these names. Some of the more famous ones are at the Tambopata Nature Reserve. So that's just southeast of Los Amigos Biological Station. And then there's Parque Nacional Manu. So that's another one that's just a little bit west of us, but this is the area of the Los Amigos Biological Station. Here's another map showing you kind of the dissected terrain. So this is a DM, a digital elevation model, showing you, what you're seeing in the different color changes in here, I believe, are showing you the different terraces and height of the terrain. So this area, pretty interesting, has lower floodplain forests that do get floods certain time of the year, and you have upper terraces that are a bit drier. And funny, I think we have talked about the effect of highways and rivers in that, if you looked at a map of where all collections were made here in North America, you might see that the diversity lies along roads, right? We know that's not true. We know that's an artifact of basically being close, immediate access, right? So in Peru, in this area where they were collecting, you're seeing a lot of these obviously on the trails, but the rivers are the pathways. So you see a lot of collections made along the riverbanks. And just to show you how dynamic this area is, so these are some aerial overflights from 1962, 85, and 2003. So if you're looking at this one, here's the next one, and here's the last one. So this is actually showing the creation of oxbow lakes. So I'm going to go back to the first one again, and I'm going to direct your attention, see if my mouse shows you, to this little pinch over here. You can see it gets closer and closer, and then it finally cuts off that section of the oxbow. So really interesting habitats that are left behind. So the basis of this and the PIs were botanists. So the botanical exploration of this area, you're looking at photographs of going up the river to a new site to collect, and you're looking at a typical setup of pressing, photographing, and basically making specimens. So this is what it looks like in the field. The specimens are pressed in newspapers, just like we do here. Often it depends on where we were collecting down there and how immediate the access was to a plant dryer. Often, being out in the field, you just had to douse the specimens with alcohol to inhibit any kind of mold growth because they weren't drying fast enough. In this case, you're not actually seeing any of that. You're just seeing plant collections tied together with with flagging tape and then put in a bag and collecting it. We call it bag and drag. What I hope y'all, I hope you'll keep in mind a little bit about this presentation when you are listening, if you choose to join us for the next presentation, because just like our Philippines project going on now, this was another big multi-person, multi-organization project and field project. And so there's a lot of similarities between the two. Fernando Cornejo, so he is the Peruvian botanist, and he is at this tree making a collection probably of the tree, and he's taking the DAP, diametro al pecho, or DBH, diameter at breast height, to get an idea of the size of the tree. And that information, so if you've ever seen DBH, so diameter at breast height on a label, that's usually abbreviated, or if you're looking at a label that's in Spanish and it says DAP, it's diametro al pecho, so diameter at chest as well. So just like the Philippines project now, this project funded a lot of students. So Romina Gassis, she now has her PhD, she's in Florida, but she did work with fungal diversity. And so y'all have probably seen some of these, well, you've probably seen images that look very similar to this. So she was documenting the macrofungi that were down in the Los Amigos biological station. But she also had this interest in entomopathogenic fungi. So those are the fungi that overtake insects, right? And then sporulate through them. So you can see some examples in here. And I'm sure some of y'all have other really good examples. But that was a fascinating project that she was working on. So her vouchers, so all the mushrooms, the fungi she collected have labels and are actually here in our fungus collection in the Phycology Herbarium. So those are always accessible to you if you would like to see them. Our fungus collection is still in the process of being digitized, so it's not all available online. Oh, and then my project, so that's me a long time ago. So I did a study of the diversity of one family of plants at the biological station and their distribution. So these are the nutmegs. So this is the Myristicaceae, and just like very similar looking actually to the nutmeg of commerce, which is not from the New World. But here you're looking at, one of the specimens of Virola, I think, then that's John Janovic. That's the PI of the project. He was my advisor while I was at TCU. And you're looking at flowers of this plant. And I should tell you that those flowers are teeny tiny. They're the size of rice grains. They're up high in the canopy. And that image at the top right, Kimberly will appreciate. This is a scanning electron micrograph using the TCU SEMs, and that is of a male flower. So it's a dioecious species where the male and female plants are separate, and you're looking at a male flower right there. Another student, this is a Peruvian student named Jorge Lingan, and he worked on aroids, the philodendron family. And I'll show you a little bit more about philodendrons a little bit later. We had Andy Waltke, who worked on the Sapitaceae, the Chicle, the gum family, cool family of trees. We had, this is another Peruvian botanist, Benjamin Chambi. He is a Peruvian fern expert, so he did a lot of work making collections of ferns. When we're talking about the Andes Amazon project and volunteering opportunities or ways to work with the collection, his collection in particular, Benjamin Chambi's, is one that kind of came in, or a lot of it came in at the very tail end of the project. And so some of this, there's some reconciliation and putting some of these online and imaging specimens again. So there's some of that to be done. And then a rather fun one. So this is Rebecca Rapaski. So she was a student here at TCU. She's now a doctor here in town at Cook's. And she basically spent a year living in Peru up in the highlands. And she did an inventory of orchids that grew up there. We had a collaboration with a orchid expert named Eric Christensen, who has since passed away, but she published some new species of orchids with him. And she did a lot of work down in Peru, lots of hard work, and her specimens are also here. And I'm afraid I didn't get a chance to show y'all, but a lot of her collections, because orchid morphology, once you flatten and dry some of those flowers, you don't really get a good sense of the shape. And so some of the orchids that Rebecca collected are actually preserved in alcohol. So we have a small spirit collection here in the Phyllocology Herbarium, and hers number amongst them. And then for all of you vanilla lovers on this cold and rainy day in North Central Texas, it might be drinking vanilla in your coffee. Ethan Householder was another student, a master, and I'm sorry, all these are master's students so far, except Ethan was a master's student at TCU, and he studied vanilla orchids. He studied vanilla orchids in aguajales, so the wetlands that are dominated by a palm, I believe it's Mauritia flexuosa. So there's a lot of palm swamps that are in these in the Sicra area and along the rivers, and there are orchids that wind up those palm trees. And so Ethan did a study working on these various species, and I think the project, other people have contributed to the same project as well. But y'all, it's so cool. You know, there are carnivorous plant bogs in these things related to our bladderworts that are in the middle of these palm swamps. And I'm sorry, I don't actually have a good picture, I don't think, of a palm swamp in here. Just to give you an idea. So this is, this is probably 2007. And this is the process of pressing collections in the field, luckily somewhere where you have a roof. This is not at the biological station, but it's at a kind of an outpost that was a little bit further up the Rio Los Amiguillos, I think. And you can see it's kind of assembly line, assigning numbers, putting them in between blotter papers. And there's actually some aluminum corrugates here that help dry out those specimens faster. So interestingly, you know, being in a tropical country, being there at the biological station, a herbarium for reference is really important to be able to identify, not just for our project, but for other researchers collecting or studying any kind of organism in that area, to have something they can reference to compare against what they found in the field, or what their organism was eating, what their monkey, their raptor, whatever happens to be. The field herbarium is actually quite important, especially when you also consider that were, you know, internet was not always 100% reliable. But then you have to struggle with a lot of the things that we struggle with even here in terms of maintaining humidity so those specimens don't get damaged. Insect activity was a big deal. So you can kind of see it in the back, but there's a bunch of plastic bags on the ground. What was typically done is the specimens, once they were mounted on those cardstocks with labels, they were put into folders inside these plastic bags, usually with some sort of, you know, pesticide, some sort of insect deterrent on the inside as well. And they were sealed and put in cabinets, not the metal ones we have here, but wooden cabinets for use. Here is, so I think we're getting to the end of me talking about herbarium specimens per se, and a little bit more about how these various, how it became the biodiversity program. So you're looking at here, I'm pretty sure that these are seeds that have been pulled out. They may have been seeds pulled out from taper dung, and I'll explain that one in a minute. But there are also probably seeds pulled from, actually, these are probably seeds pulled from herbarium specimens that were intended to fuel this project. So this book on the right-hand side, it's a field guide to seeds of Amazonian plant genera. So using the specimens that were collected on the project and the seeds that were observable on the specimens, Fernando Cornejo and John Janovic were able to produce this book. Which is really useful. You can imagine all sorts of people are using this book to help identify what plant they have, especially if they just have that diaspore, they just have that seed of the plant and they don't know what tree it came from. So that becomes really useful. All the plants collected on the project had many other products based off those sources of data. Some of these are listed up here, and you'll see in the slides, Ashley contributed later, that there are a few more of these. All right, that's a lot of talking that I've been doing. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. Well, feel free to put a question in the chat if you like, or feel free to ask me out loud. So this slide, some of you will recognize. German explorer, naturalist Alexander von Humboldt explored in South America, 1799, 1804. You're looking at one of the illustrations of, I think this is Mount Chirumbasu in Ecuador. And what you cannot read is the fact that he wrote the names of plants as they were growing at different altitudes and different locations on here. And this was kind of the opening slide that the PI of the project, John Janovic, used to always start with to talk about the fact that plants occur in different places and there is meaning for why they occur in those places. And if we can just uncover, some of those other factors, biotic, abiotic, that determine where a plant will grow, there's all sorts of questions we can ask and understand. And so part of the Andes Amazon, the technology piece, or part of the technology piece, was trying to create a system, a biodiversity information system that integrated all these different kinds of data that were being collected on this project and adjacent projects to kind of give you a better idea of the biodiversity, the how, the why behind it. And so, and there's different sorts of organisms contributing to what that ecosystem means. Tapers. So that gentleman you saw going through with John Janovic of the seeds, that was actually Matthias Tobler. Matthias did work on tapers. So you've probably seen some of these perhaps at the zoo. Matthias was putting GPS collars with his team on these tapers, which are nocturnal. So you're looking at various images of the tapers. I think everything, but perhaps the top right image, they have a GPS collar on them. He was able to track these, and these are, you're now looking at 2 slides showing the tracks of one particular female taper named Victoria. And I believe in the big image on the left that's primarily dark green, you are seeing different colors for each day of data that the taper was recording. And if you look on the right side, you can actually see some timestamps on when those GPS collars were taking coordinates. And one of the interesting things he was able to show is that these tapers are actually, if you looked at their home range, for the most part, for a large amount of time, they're staying in an area that's about 2.5 square kilometers. But every so often they travel about 10 kilometers, and they're traveling down, in this case, to the south. So what it turns out is that these tapers, they're permanescing, they have what they need in that 2.5 square kilometer area, but there's some reason they're coming down and traveling that long distance. And it turns out is that they are going to colpas, they're going to clay licks. And so, and there's various studies, of course, that happened before then and since then, talking about why these organisms are coming to these clay and salt licks, mineral licks. One of the reasons being that it's a place to find partners. Right. So this is a case for mating purposes. And so this is a case where Victoria, the female, they had some camera traps set up. So this is a case where you could see what was going on here. Any other questions about the tapers so far? I should say that one of the ways the project was integrated is that book that came out about seeds of Amazonian plant genera. One of the other ways Matthias and his team, which was included Javier Huinga, one of the other ways they were studying these animals, other than GPS collars, was also their scat, right? Because these are nocturnal, so you'd have to go out in the middle of the night to even trap them, to tranquilize them and put on the collar. But they would collect their scat. And so from their scat that was dated, and then, location was recorded, they were able to tell what these tapers were eating. Having the reference collection, or that reference book of seeds of the Amazonian plant genera, told them what plants those tapers were eating, but it was actually all the specimens and the identification of the specimens and the seeds that informed that book. So it all comes back, though, to the specimens themselves. And that's why it's so important that we're able to digitize these and put them out. So I know Kimberly will appreciate this, and many of you as well. Kimberly, did you have a comment about this one?
No, but I was excited to see it. So I had to jump back online just to make sure that I love the slide.
Yeah, so this was another exciting. So we had plants, we had tapers, we had moths, and I will say that a lot of this was collaborative. So I think that the pieces of the project I'm choosing to present were the ones that had a closer tie with us here. But this is Pedro Centeno. So he is a field researcher working on moths. And you'll see some familiar sites here from the mothing that you can see in the middle. He is drying them So I think you can see that in that drying cabinet in the bottom right-hand side of this slide. And then on the bottom left-hand side, that's how he is, I suppose. I wonder what part of the process that was. Oh, I'm not sure at what point in the stage of processing he would have been putting in those little glycine envelopes. Oh, I never-
Probably after they were dry. That's just his way of collecting it until he was able to field mount it.
Yeah.
Which is what he's doing in the upper right corner where he's spreading them. Yeah.
Yeah. I do remember that we went out once with him, and I remember that he was it cicadas? He was having such a trouble of them taking over the sheet that he was having to manually remove them and stick them in a bucket. And just keep doing that so that the moths would have somewhere to alight. And then eventually, of course, he let the cicadas go. But I believe that was the problem. But you'll find the rest interesting too. So there were two groups in particular that he was concentrating on because, you know, the diversity is huge. So the Sphingidae, the hawk sphinx, and hummingbird moths. Y'all are familiar with those from here as well. And the second group was the Arctiidae, so the wasp, tiger, and lichen moths. So those were the two groups he especially concentrated on. And so what was the connection back to plants? Just like the tapirs and the dung and finding out what they were consuming had a connection as well. You've got here, you're looking at the proboscis of the moth here, and you're looking at a pollen grain, right? So these as pollinators, you will end up with pollen grains attached to the moths themselves. And so what Pedro did is he was able to, you know, through Brit, we helped ship all these things all around with the appropriate permits to get specimens in and out and everywhere. And the collaborator that was doing a lot of the IDs was Mark Bush at the Neotropical Pollen Lab in Florida. I believe that's correct. And so that was the collaboration there, working with somebody external to them. And some of the cool things that they were finding, if I recall correctly, was that on some of the moths that they were finding, and forgive me which way around this was, that they were finding at a higher elevation or a lower elevation, they were finding pollen from plants that grew at the opposite. So what that was showing is just that moth was traveling a long way. It was traveling across habitats to beyond where that plant that it was pollinating existed. So it's just kind of another fascinating way to show how these pollen grains are transported and how far these moths are traveling. And there are many, many more images, and I don't believe these were put on iNaturalist at any, I know they weren't. I don't personally know where those images of those moths exist today. But I believe the moths themselves are pinned and have been given to the San Marcos Herbarium in Lima, or to the collection I assume the Natural History Collection in Lima. But I don't know that for a fact. I will say all the herbarium specimens collected, we have a duplicate set here, and there was also a duplicate set left in San Marcos in Lima. And then at one point, I believe we were also depositing duplicates at La Molina University, the agricultural university in Peru as well. So all that back to, they really wanted a way to look at all these kinds of data in one place. And so the Andes Amazon Project created their own database to connect all these things, but it was all based around specimens, around herbarium specimens and field images. And this is kind of what it looked like. Y'all are seeing, maybe it's a bit hard to read, but that a bunch of text in the top left-hand side of this screen, it says Erianthera huruensis, which is a member of the nutmegs, and it gives you all the location data and all the other data. So very similar to what you might see in the Torch portal if y'all are crowdsourcing or transcribing with us. And this is what it looked like. It was a really powerful tool. And it tried to accommodate and do a lot of different things, including managing different collectors, projects, different research sites, different organisms. So it was a very ambitious project, and it's so interesting to see the different solutions databases have today to address what this was addressing then. And this was built in-house, so it was built through some of those funds we talked about. And it became, so we called it Atrium, and it became a information system, not just for the herbarium specimens here at BRIT, but it became a regional database for many people that are working in that region of the world to put data in. There were less oversight and regulations, I think, oversight of what collections were getting in there and how they were getting in there. And it no longer, it's defunct. So in terms of the BRIT, Andes Amazon specimens, they're no longer, the site doesn't exist for that purpose anymore. But y'all, so these records, these specimens were born digital. They were typed into a database. In fact, I think it was Access when we first started. And then it moved to Excel sheets that were uploaded to this system. But basically all these data for these collections to make these labels existed in a different system. We've been slowly moving that system over to the Torch portal. And that's the stage that you find us in now. So y'all have been helping us with direct digitization. Here's another digitization problem that we've had thrown at us, is translating to a different technology. Adding to the fact that there's often a disjunct, hopefully there isn't, between, or a discrepancy, I should say, between a digital record and the physical specimen. And we do our very best to make sure whatever's on the specimen is accurately reflected online, so you can always find things. That is the process that we're going through right now, is making sure that there is that those are reconciled before we put these data all online. So that's the stage where we're at for the Andes Amazon project. And then just to show you, sorry, this is a bit of a pixelated image, but the Torch portal does a lot of what the Andes Amazon is, the Atrium was doing, but it really keeps it just to the specimen, just to the herbarium sheet, at least the way we're using it. All right, again, lots and lots of talking. Does anybody have any questions for me thus far? And there's a small group of us, so please do feel free to unmute yourselves if you would like to ask a question. And I don't see anything in the chat so far. And if any of you joined us a bit late, just know that this is going to be recorded and it will be available online, which means you can hold me to anything I've said. So these next slides, the point of these was to show you that this project existed, finished in about 2011 or 12. But the specimens that were collected continue to fuel all sorts of research and will continue to do so as we discover new technologies and ways to study them. So Ashley has put a link in here to take you directly to these collections as they exist in Torch. You're looking at just a few of them. I'm not actually going to link out to them right now, but you're just seeing some examples of the types of things collected, and you're seeing the main one of the main collectors, John P. Janovic, listed here. Ooh. Okay, but now this, I really want to highlight this individual. Today, this is Ana Albarán. Ana is a wonderful person who volunteered with us. Oh, this was just before COVID. And we did a lot of work together to train on how to reconcile the physical specimens with its digital life and what had happened to it digitally since the specimen was collected. And so she was able to image about, over 2,600 specimens. And I estimate that we have, I don't know, over 10, somewhere between over 9,000 specimens collected on that project that are deposited here. That doesn't include, of course, all the duplicates. So I think we try to collect in 3 to 5 sets, maybe. So that means that for every specimen, if there was enough material and we wouldn't affect the future of that population, we would have collected a total of 5 specimens to distribute to the National Herbaria in Peru, to experts around the world that were going to help us identify the plants, and as gift to other institutions that had interests in this region of the world, so it would supplement the kind of work that they were doing. So Anna has been pretty spectacular, and we're still in contact, but she's not actually volunteering with us currently. Okay, so Ashley chose some pretty charismatic groups to talk to you about here today, so hopefully I do some of the work justice. So you're looking at a table search return of orchids from the Andes to Amazon project. So the collector for these ones that you're seeing on the screen is Jason Wells, who now lives in Colorado, and then Benjamin Chambi, who you heard about earlier today. So Benjamin collected all organisms or all plant groups, but he did concentrate on ferns, at least at one point in his project. So some facts that Ashley found online is that Peru is estimated to have about 3,000 orchid species with 775 Peruvian endemics, which is pretty cool. And it shows even all the work that was done on the Andes Amazon project, the diversity of orchids was just not captured. So, and something she mentions here is that there are many specimens we have that could turn out to be new species to science. And I will tell you that we still do have regular, yearly requests for specimens from this project as people are describing new species around the world, or as experts that are around the world are describing new species from this Peruvian material or in reference to it. So here are some epiphytic orchids that Ashley put pictures of. These are from our Andes Amazon project. They're all available in Torch. And I will tell you that orchids are one of those groups that's monitored by CITES, so the Convention on the International Trade in Endangered Species. And so there are special permits to move these specimens around and get them here to Texas. Here are some terrestrial orchids, so epiphytic being those that are growing on top of other organisms, on top of other substrates. Terrestrial, those growing in the ground. And then she wanted to draw attention to, this is a begonia that was collected in Peru. And those of you that may have participated in some of our children's programs, you've heard of the Bella program, Bella the begonia. It was actually this Andes Amazon project that inspired the artist Pam Chamberlain to create some of that original curriculum and to think of the idea of Bella the begonia. And this paper that Ashley found, this was published in, is this just 2023? So this is a 2023 publication of new species in Peru. And it includes a species, Begonia lophophthora, that is one of the specimens that we have that was collected. Actually, I think this is a Jason Wells collection. Yeah, so this is a Jason Wells collection. So this is published in 2023. The specimen itself, was collected in 2011, it looks like, this one. So a 2011 collection that took how many years to get described as new to science? And so that is the value of also digitizing these, is putting them online, is that people have access to all the specimens of a particular group to kind of notice what's different. And then they can say, hey, that specimen, that image I'm looking at, it looks a little different. Can you please send me a loan of just that plant, which is both cheaper, it's less labor intensive for the sending and receiving institution. It's safer because you're not sending hundreds of specimens. So all things said, it's a very good. Bye, David. Thank you for coming. And I realize that we're at 12:57, so I only have a couple more slides. So bear with me just for a second, but please leave if you need to, because I know we're cutting it close. The other family that Ashley wanted me to highlight, and this is probably a great place to end, is the aroid family, the Araceae. She has this article, and I'm afraid I can give you the reference later, but she has this article by Tom Croat, who is a world-known expert for this group of plants. You've got a few specimens of this family that are on the page, a field image in the middle, and you might recognize that a little bit because it looks like a calla lily, which is in the family. So this is the philodendron family, the pothos family, the monstera family. But Tom Croat wrote this article about the high diversity of the aroids in the neotropics. And I think this is really great, this last section that Ashley highlighted, saying an alternative approach is to encourage more floristic studies where researchers are intending to collect all the species from a given area. It's not as efficient if you're sending the world expert to the field to just collect that one plant, but it does give you some good coverage. And I'll highlight the highlighted part in yellow here. So it says, finally, even much higher numbers of new species have already been collected, and they are present in existent herbarium collections, but yet remain to be determined. An increase in the study of herbarium specimens by taxonomic experts and students alike will prove to be a fruitful venue to increase our understanding of the rich diversity of the Araceae. And I think you could apply that to all families. basically the idea that we hold more biodiversity in our collections already than we know. So there's still a lot of work yet to be done. And that's where digitization really kicks in, is that these are just not accessible to everyone if they're not available online, if you can't search them and find their images. So with that said, that's the last slide. So that was a lot of talking and telling you about a project. And so please feel free to ask me any questions if you like about the project or off topic. As usual, we'll make something up. Just kidding. I'll send you to the right resource. So thank you very much. And it's nice to see everyone virtually. Thank y'all. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Anita Joyce. Feel free to unmute yourselves if you'd like, if you want to ask a question before you leave.
That was great. I learned some new stuff myself.
I'm glad.
Of course, I love the moths.
I know.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if I can hunt down some more of that information. I'll show you where some of that is, because it would be a nice project to be able to put it online.
Yeah.
If there was permission. Alan, you must have seen some of these presentations back when the program was running. Well, thank you all very much. And please join us next month or send us messages if you have questions about georeferencing in that next part of the project. Alan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to respond. I don't recall seeing anything on this back from the early days.
Yeah.
I know, Mother was very involved, but I didn't really get active in the Brit organization until y'all moved into the new building.
Yeah, maybe that was right. I mean, we knew about you from your mom.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well,
I take that back. When I was in college back in the 70s, I did do some research there at the original SMU herbarium at SMU.
Did you? What did you do?
Well, I actually, because I was studying computer science, I actually put together a dichotomous key for some of the plant families, I guess.
You remember which ones they were?
Well, it was key to the families. I don't recall.
Okay.
Specifically, I wonder, and I can't remember back that far, but I'm sure I met Barney, and I think I met Mahler before he passed away.
I bet you did. If you were there, it would have been Barney or Dr. Mahler, or there was somebody else, and I'm afraid I didn't know them personally, but
yeah.
Well, I thought you would especially appreciate the idea of moving from, one format of the data and images to another format, and having to deal with that technology transfer, which we're still dealing with, but.
Yeah, no. And I am interested in the georeferencing. I didn't see anything specific out on the website that talked kind of referencing back to what Linda Jo was saying. That
Okay. Well, what we've done so far, it's been through email that people have requested. I don't know if Ashley has put a live link about georeferencing online yet, and I suspect that part of her reasoning is that since we don't have the test live yet, we just haven't been advertising it even further. So I think we have about 20 people that have taken that have done. Have you seen the georeferencing form, Alan?
No.
Okay. Well, then I'm just going to send it to you after we get done today, and I'll send you a copy of all the the 2 emails that have gone out so far.
Okay. Well, and I've sent y'all a request to get involved, so
okay,
you can just respond to that.
Okay, I can do that. But yes, you'll see it on there. And I think we have 20 people that have expressed interest, either because I think Ashley sent out an email to those of you that may have said something in the past, but if she didn't write it down when you expressed it, you might not have gotten that email. And then we have virtual volunteers from the Master Naturalist Project. So we've actually got some wonderful, wonderful individuals that have already reached out to us. So we're just trying to make sure we provide everyone with the information they need right now until the test is live.
Sounds good.
Oh, it's nice to hear you, Alan, and it's nice to see everyone else on here.
Look forward to it.
Hasta luego. Bye, everybody.
Adios.
Adios.